welcome to Let's Paint, acrylic painting classes for beginners of all ages. I'm Victoria Gobel, and in each video I will be teaching you techniques step by step to a completed acrylic painting. In each lesson we will have two beginner students learning alongside you. Today we have Jennifer and Sandy. Make sure you don't compare your painting with theirs, mine, or anybody else that might be painting next to you. Remember, your painting is unique and one of a kind. Also, feel free to press pause anytime. Remember, there's no rush. Before you get started, do you have all your art supplies? If you don't, you can get that on my Let's Paint supply list video on YouTube. Today, we will be painting a yellow Gerber daisy. But first, let's start by drawing our daisy on our canvas. I find that these watercolor pencils work great for sketching on your canvas because they come off when you get them wet. If you're using an 11 by 14 canvas like Jennifer and Sandy, you'll need a plastic cup. Do you want to hold that up, Jennifer? Thank you. And if you're using a 16 by 20, you're going to need like a 6-inch bowl for the center of your daisy. Okay, so let's get busy sketching. I want you two to take your cups, and I'm going to take my bowl, and we're going to find the center of our daisy up in the upper right hand side. You want to leave at least 4 fingers on the side here and maybe 5 fingers on the side over here. This way it's kind of off-centered. You don't want to take it and put it in the middle. So take your circle off to the right side, upper right side, and take your watercolor pencil and go ahead and draw all the way around. And then remove your bowl or your cup. Now, I want you to take your pencil and start marking about a 1/2 inch lines going all the way around your circle. They don't have to be perfect. You can just sort of eyeball it all the way around. Okay, how are you two doing?
Good.
Good. All right. The next step is every other one. So I'm going to just put a little line here because you know what? That's all going to get covered up with paint. I want you to just sort of connect every other one like this. All right, now we're going to draw our petals. So in every one that has the line that's going across, those will be the petals that go in the front. So all I want you to do is loosely draw a petal. Remember, this is a flower, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Just very loosely. See how mine are not all the same size? And this one's going to actually go right off the page. Sometimes they touch each other too, and that's okay. And now I'm back down to doing a whole petal. So it should look something like this when you do the first part of the sketch.
I don't think I drew my petals correct.
Well, let me come see. All right. Okay, what is it that you don't like about your petals?
This one's too thin.
Okay.
And this one, there's a line coming.
So really all you have to do is come out wider. Don't be afraid to make them fatter.
Okay.
Okay?
That makes sense. Yes.
And remember, when you look at a real flower, none of the petals are identical. So don't worry that they all don't look the same. That actually looks more natural. So I'm just going to move on to the second part of the sketch. But if you want to press pause, take your time, sketch it, and then press play and we'll go to the second part. So now we have this space that's in between each petal. So what I want you to do is just draw petals that are behind those petals. And it's really not a whole one, you're just kind of putting a little V like this, going around. Except when you get to the end right here, you don't need to do it because it's all covered up. How are you doing, Jennifer?
Good.
Oh, I like it. Very nice. You're almost done. All right, so if you've finished your sketch, we'll start with painting in the background. I like to use two plates. One I like to put my paint on, and the other one I like for mixing. So on the plate that you're going to squeeze out your paint on, take your phthalo blue, phthalo green, cad yellow, yellow ochre, burnt umber, cad red, light, and we're going to need, last but not least, white. Okay, let's start by painting in our background. Pick up your wide brush and dip it in some water. Make sure that all the water comes out of it. If you want to use a paper towel, you can. So I think I'll grab one over here. Just don't want to start with a dry brush. And I want you to just dip it in some of that phthalo blue. And straight phthalo blue, we're just going to start blocking it in all over the side of the daisy. Make sure you leave some open space. Don't make it solid. If you feel like your paint is very thick, just dip your brush in a little bit of water and put it right back in your paint, and it'll go on nice and creamy. Outline the flower using your chisel brush. And this is very easy because it gets very thin here when you angle it. So use that tool to glide around your petals. Now, if you happen to cover up part of your flower, don't worry about it. Just keep painting in. See how I have some white blotches? We're going to come in with another color. As I get over to the side, don't do any of the background because all of these spaces in between your petals are actually the petals that are in the background. So this is as far as I'm going to go with mine. Have your strokes go from side to side, up and down, but never just in one direction. Okay, I'm going to just take my brush, dip it in a little water, and dip it right into phthalo green. And now I'm going to hit all the areas that I didn't hit in the beginning with the blue. You can overlap right over the blue if you wish. The great thing about acrylic paint is it dries fast, which gives you an opportunity to cover it up if you're not happy with it. And if you feel like your paints on your palette are getting thick, feel free to spritz them with a little bit of water. These two colors look so beautiful together. All right, take your brush and just slightly dab it in the yellow. And let's get some really bright green parts in here. Again, just brushing from side to side. This yellow makes more of a lime color. And now we've got about 3 shades on our background. Okay. Just a little bit more, and I think I'm gonna move on to the flower. But again, if you would like to press pause and work on your background a little bit more, this would be a good time to press pause and finish your background. Okay, now that I've got my background painted in, I gotta rinse this brush out really good. Phthalo blue and phthalo green are very strong colors, kind of like a dye. So make sure that you rinse out your paintbrush really good. You may even want to take it to the sink and use some soap and water because we don't want this color in our daisy. Okay, let's see, if you wipe it on a paper towel and you still see a lot of blue, it's time to rinse it out some more. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna block in our flower. Let's start with the middle first. This one, you're just gonna take the straight burnt umber, the dark chocolate brown that's in front of you. Go ahead and take your big paintbrush and fill in the middle. It doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, it's a flower. And as you can see, I'm purposely not doing it a perfect circle. Same thing with the turquoise blue. When you get done, rinse out your brush really good. I find that it takes a couple of times to really get all the paint out. All right, let's block in our petals. Okay, to start off with, we're going to take the yellow ochre and we're going to mix it with a little bit of this burnt umber. So you're going to want to take your palette knife and scoop in the yellow ochre on your other plate and just a tiny bit of burnt umber. And let's mix those two colors together on our other plate. Maybe just a little bit more, just so that it's definitely darker than the straight yellow ochre. There, that looks good. These petals will be in the background. Okay, so take your wide brush again. Unless you feel more comfortable using the next size down, which you can. I actually like working with a wide brush. Dip your paint and a little bit of water just to make it creamier. And I want you to paint in all of these petals that are in the background, not the ones in front, the first petals that you drew. Remember? Work on the ones that go in the back. And you can overlap on the blue a little bit. It's a nice way to clean up those lines. This is just one of many layers, so don't worry about it looking a certain way because it's going to change again and again. By the time we're finished, you're going to be very happy with your petals. Okay, once I've gone all the way around, I'm going to go back over a second time. It should be kind of a sticky dry, but not completely dry. But just go ahead and brush over it again a second time, just to get it more solid. And this is a good time to press pause while you finish up this phase before we go on to the next phase. Okay, the second part of filling in the petals is just straight yellow ochre. So I'm just going to take my brush and dip it right into the yellow ochre, and I'm going to fill in the other petals. See how there's a slight contrast between them? Again, don't worry about staying in the lines. I even overlapped it a little. The important thing is that you can tell the difference between the ones in the front and the ones in the back. Also, while you're painting these petals, make sure you're going in the direction of the petal. So in other words, don't fill it in across like this. Fill it in downward strokes like this. See how you can already see some of the definition of the grooves in each petal? All right, as I'm closing in on the last petal, this is actually a good time to take a break. Let's let this dry really well. So grab a snack, make a phone call, do whatever you have to do to give this about maybe 10 minutes of drying time. 10 or 15 minutes is good. And we'll come back and start on the detail of our flower. Okay, so now we're going to get to the detail of our flower. Take your water spritzer though, and let's give our paint just a little bit of spritzing, because by now it's probably getting a little bit crusty and dry. Okay, so you're going to take your yellow ochre and you're going to take your yellow, but let's do more yellow and just a little bit of yellow ochre, not a lot, to make a nice warm yellow color. And we're going to start with the background petals, just like we did the first time around. This time I want you to take this medium-sized brush. It's also got the chisel on it, but it's about half the size of the brush that we've been using. And we're going to go ahead and dip it in that nice yellowy gold color. It's kind of the color of mustard. And let's go ahead and just dip it right in there. And we're going to work with the petals that are in the back, the darker ones, okay? So start with the middle and come down and give yourself some grooves in between, okay? So that's just, we're gonna only work on the background ones. Start with the middle and come around to the sides. Line, left, right. Make sure you're going with the motion of the petal. Also, make sure that you go all the way to the outside of the petal. Don't leave it dark on the sides. Make sure that yellow tone is right here on the sides. And of course, as we get up to the ones that are sort of disappearing, just some straight lines will do. Don't worry about trying to define that it's a petal. I'm going to go over it a second time. Somewhat disappears after it starts drying. Using the same color, you're going to come along and do the ones in the front now. Make sure you leave some of that background color showing. Those are the grooves in your petal. After I've gone all the way around, I want to step back and look at it and decide where I need to give it a heavier coat to really define those petals in the front. So that's really up to you, which petals you want to give a second coat to. And I'm just going to hit a few of these in the front just to wake them up a little. Same color though, just give it a second coat. All right, so we're going to take that same yellow and a little bit of burnt umber, just a tiny bit, and we're going to add a little bit of white to that. Just a little bit. I'm only going to work on the petals in the front. Look at the difference. We're just going to come straight down the middle, left, right, left, right. Straight down the middle, left, right, left, right. Look how those just wake up. And this is pretty much wet on wet paint. Make sure that you don't come in around the inside of your flower. That needs to be darker so it looks like the petals are kind of punching in. Remember, these are all the petals that are in the front. How are you doing, Sandy and Jennifer?
Doing great. Good.
Good. Try not to make each petal look identical, okay? Just give each petal its own personality. Most important, have fun while you're doing this. Take your brush with the same color and just hit the ones in the back just a little bit, not a lot. Remember, they're hiding behind the other petals. Just a tiny bit right here on the very edge of the petal. I'm going to take a little bit more white and put it in my yellow mixture to make an even lighter shade of yellow. And now we're going to hit just in a few places in the middle of our petals. What this is doing is actually making our petals pop out and giving them dimension. Okay, I'm closing in on the detail of my petals. All these highlights here are to make my petals scoop like this, which is what a petal does. So I think I'm going to stop right around here, rinse out my brush, and I'm going to take that yellow ochre and I'm going to mix a tiny bit of burnt umber in that and a little bit of that cad red light, just a little bit. All right, so I should get kind of a nice caramely color. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the center right here with my brush, take my finger and rub it out. And this just kind of makes it tuck in even more to the center, all the way around. Just take my finger and brush it that way. It'll make more sense when we actually get the center done. You see how it's kind of falling in a little bit deeper? Not so much, and you don't have to do it identical all the way around, especially these ones in the background. You really want to hit those with that darker color and then less on the ones in the front. Still using the strokes that go in the direction of the flower petal. I like to use my finger a lot in my paintings for blending, kind of like finger painting. But in order for that to work smoother, you have to make sure that your paint's not real dry. So make sure you dip your brush in a little bit of water, put it on your paint, and again, come across here, and because it's pretty wet, it blends much easier with my finger, coming all the way to the dark brown. This is how we can get a nice, kind of a muted tone. Goes right into the colors that it's covering up. Maybe in a few places with these ones that are behind, I'm gonna hit it in those places and blend it out. It just kind of gives it a little bit more dimension. This is one of those paintings that you'll want to do a couple of times. Each time you do it, you're going to want to try some different colors. Maybe do the background in purple or red. Maybe do a pink daisy, but the techniques are still the same. Okay, this is a good place to stop, and now I'm going to work on the center of my Gerber daisy. Okay, I am ready to do the center of my Gerber daisy. How about you gals? Are you almost there? Okay, great. Let's take some burnt umber and some yellow ochre. How about 50-50 of each one? And let's mix up a mixture of that. Okay, this time I want you to add a little red to that. Cad red light is very strong. You only need a little. So again, it's kind of the same color that you just made to do this center part right here. okay? But maybe just a little bit more burnt umber. Let's make it a little bit darker. There we go. That's a nice color right there. Okay, and we're gonna take an even smaller brush. So let's just say it's half the size of the one that we just got done using. Okay, dip it in some water and let's get that and mix it around in our paint. This one has to be a little bit more watery than the other one. Okay, now all we're gonna do is we're going to dot and dot and dot over and over and over again. So start with the outside, overlap it. Make sure that you overlap it going all the way around. And this is what's called almost stippling. But you are not going to do the center. So what we're gonna create is the stippling in a donut shape. So you want to kind of leave, and I'll kind of draw this out right now, a circle about this big that goes unpainted. Okay? So let's get busy stippling, and I'll take you to the next step as soon as you finish this. It's okay if they touch each other too. You can overlap them. Okay, I've gone around in my little donut shape. So now I'm going to take a little bit more burnt umber and mix it with my mixture. And I'm going to go ahead and fill in the center. This should be a darker color than the one that you just finished up with. So let's go ahead and fill in our center. All right. You should definitely be able to tell that this color is a little bit darker than this color right here. At this point, I want you to take your paintbrush and dip it in some burnt umber, just the straight dark brown that you use to fill in your middle, and go ahead and do some dots all the way around the edge. This way it doesn't look like a perfect round circle. Okay, so now we're going to work on the inner part of the middle right here. We're going to take that color that we made for the middle, which was yellow ochre, a tiny bit of the cad red light, a little burnt umber, and this time we're going to add a little bit of white to it to lighten it up. Add some water to your brush, just so it makes it a little bit easier to work with. Okay. So this should be lighter than the color that you laid down right here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a ring all the way around of the stippling. See how much lighter it is? Do not go all the way to the edge with this. And you want to take it about 1/4 of an inch to the edge, but not all the way to the edge of the inner part of that circle. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It is a flower.
Just add a little white.
Just a little white to that color, yes. I actually added a little bit more cad red light too, just to kind of make it warmer. Usually warm colors come out in the front and cool colors stay in the back. That's what gives it dimension. So I'm going to keep going in my circle, shaped like a donut shape. Try not to make it go like it's in a row, like dot, 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 dot. Make it go kind of in and out and in and out. Looks a lot more natural. You see what's happening? The center is starting to pop out and the middle is going inward. Okay, let's add some more yellow and more white to that color. So now we're getting even lighter. A little bit of water on my brush. And I'm going to go right smack dab in the center. And the ring is actually getting narrower as we go around in our circle. I want you to take that same color and just kind of dab it in a few random places. Those are the ones that are sort of catching the light. Maybe even just a few in the center too. Not a lot. And just for fun, we're going to go even lighter, and we're just going to do cad yellow light and white. And that will be the final stippling, and we're just going to hit a few places in the center going all the way around. Okay, I think I'm all done with all of my details in the center of my flower. So the only thing left to do is sign my name. So make sure that you sign your name. It's very important that your signature go on it. Okay. So Jennifer, you're ready to sign? Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, you're going to want to use a very fine paintbrush, and the best way to sign your name is using very watered down paint. The important thing is that you don't try to do it all in one dip. So go ahead and start with the J, dip it back in, E, and sign it just the way you sign your name. Okay. If you feel you need more water, feel free to dip inside of the water and wet your paint again. You just have to keep dipping it in for each letter. Sometimes people find that the hardest thing is to sign their painting. Excellent. So we're all done. Thank you for joining us today, and it looks like we've got 3 beautiful paintings, and I'm sure your painting is just as beautiful. If you'd like to learn more about Let's Paint with Victoria Gobel, go to my website at letspaintwithvictoriagobel.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time. Bye.